Okay, it is week 9. So in today's class, we're going to do some work on our shopping cart. We are not going to have any quiz this week, so there's no homework. There's nothing graded to do in this class. We will have an in-class lab in week 10. If you're watching this lesson video asynchronously, I'm going to encourage you to join class live next week. You can do the lab at home on your own time, but I think it's going to be more productive and more useful if you are working with others in our live class time, if at all possible. So what I'd like you to do is open up your web project and also get connected to your database. So I've already got my project here open in Visual Studio, and I've already launched it. Yes. So Mike, that's a good point. A number of the NuGet packages, so .NET 5 is now in preview mode. So a number of the packages, there are now version 5 of those dependencies out, like the Microsoft library. The problem is our app is using .NET Core 3.1. So if you install a version 5 package, it's not going to work with our application that we're building on .NET 3.1. So you can downgrade those packages. Yes, Rashana, you're correct. Microsoft was just an in-class activity that we were working on last week. It was not required for the assignment. So don't panic if Microsoft is not included in the assignment. That's fine. I think I did also, I meant to send out an announcement. I did record a full video of about 15 minutes of the process of setting up the Microsoft login and having it work on Azure. I'm going to check. I thought I sent an announcement out about that.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, great. Thank you. So if you want to see the full steps of, thanks, Rashana, if you want to see the full steps of adding the Microsoft login, again, you didn't have to do it for Marks, but I did it in this video, and I also showed how to also make that run on Azure. Actually, sorry, I'm not sure if I showed you how to do it on Azure, but I used the Azure portal to set up the Microsoft app, and then I configured my .NET Duds application, or it may have been one of my other sites. I honestly can't remember because I've got 3 different versions of it. Yes, I did. So coming back to Mike's point, in my Solution Explorer, you'll notice if I look in my dependencies and packages, I used the Microsoft account, but notice I used version 3.1. And for Google, I use 3.1.9. For Microsoft, I use 3.1.10. So if you try it now, if you haven't done Microsoft already, when you search for that package, the default version code is going to be version 5. So we don't want to use version 5. We want to use a version 3.1 of all our dependencies because our app is using .NET Core 3.1. So that's a little gotcha to watch out for. So what are we going to do today with our shop? So here's where we left off last week. We built our product list and our product details where we could add items to our cart. And then we built the cart page. Keep shopping. Put something else in my cart. Right, so I've got a couple items. So the cart looks pretty good. We've got our thumbnails, we've got our totals, our line item totals, as well as our grand total. We've got links back to the products. There's a couple things we should still do with our cart before we move on to the checkout page. The first thing we need to do, yes, Sierra, we are going to do that. So we're going to add a cart link, and we also want to add a little badge to it that shows the number of items in the cart. So great suggestion. That's definitely one of the things we're going to do. In fact, I should probably just highlight, I put these things on Blackboard. So thanks, Sierra, you are one step ahead of me, but that reminds me to show the lesson objectives. So our remove items from cart isn't functional right now. If I click delete, we just get a blank page. So it's calling remove from cart, passing in an ID, but this doesn't exist. So that's going to be the first thing we're going to do, is make that functional. We also have an issue with duplicate items. Right? If I look at my cart right now, I've got one beige sweater, but if I keep shopping and I buy a couple more of these sweaters, what's going to happen when I add them to my cart now?
It'll add another instance of base sweater with a quantity of 2.
You got it. Right. That's right, Kevin and Mike. So we're getting it as a separate line item here. So this is happening because in our add to cart method, we're always just adding a new record every time. We never actually wrote any code to check, hey, does this product, is it already in this user's cart? And if it is, rather than adding it as a separate line item, we just want to increment, we want to do an update instead of adding a new record. So we'll take the current quantity and then increment it by adding the new quantity on top. So that's the second thing we're going to do. Remove from cart, preventing duplicate items, and then we're going to do exactly what Sierra suggested. We want to have a cart link in the navigation bar, and we want to add a badge beside it so users can always see how many items are in their cart. So for example, let's go here. If I'm going to shop for some books, right? Now this uses a cookie, so it remembers. So it shows me there's 5 items in my cart. And it's not counting the number of products, it's counting the actual the quantities. So I've got 4 copies of this book and 1 copy of this book. Right? Interesting, both .NET books by someone named Freeman, no relation. I have no idea who Adam Freeman is. Okay, so my cart shows 5. So even though there's only 2 different products, the total quantity, the total number of items I've got in my cart is 5. So we'll want to add a cart link here, and we can use a little badge. Yes, I probably could. Who couldn't use a faux fur throw on a snowy November day? Well, I could get one for each of you. Christmas gifts for the whole class. So we're going to want to add this to our cart link. And then the other thing we're going to need to do is we're going to build a checkout form. And in order to do that, we're going to need to extend the .NET session object. Because right now the session doesn't support storing of complex objects. So we want to create an order, and we want to store all the information about that order in one object, and then we need to pass that object from page to page using a .NET session. So we'll need a little extension library for that. Okay, so there's our goals for today. We'll also touch on the view model. Sierra sent me an email asking a question, so we'll talk about this a little bit later. We're not going to use it, but I'll just show you the concept here. And then for next week, we're going to sign up for the Stripe Payment Gateway. It's a free account. So in next week's class, we're going to integrate an online payment mechanism into our cart. So we won't use Stripe today, but I'll want you just to sign up. No, we're not going to be using components. So our first task is this remove from cart. Right, so we've got a link that calls a remove from cart method in our shop controller. Well, we don't have this, so we need to create it. So let's go to our shop controller. And let's add a new get method, which will be shop / remove from cart / and then some ID number. So our method name is remove from cart in Pascal case, and it's going to take an int parameter. So the primary key from our carts table, which item are we removing from this table? So if we look at our database, so when a user clicks remove from cart, excuse me, right, we're going to take the primary key and we want to remove that record from the carts table in the database. So we'll find the item with this PK value. We'll use our carts DB set and we'll call find, and we can pass in the primary key. If it finds something, we'll call the remove method of the DB set. So we want to remove this item. And then we're going to save the changes back to the database. So on line 109, this commits that deletion in our carts table. After we remove the item from the cart, what should we do? What should the user see in their browser?
That record with the item gone.
Yep, so we could show a confirmation. That would be one issue, one possibility. That would be fine. What would another alternative be? If you wanted to do a confirmation, that would be fine. What else could we do? Yeah, I'm thinking we could just redirect back, call the cart method again. So we can redirect to the cart method, which then fetches the updated list and reloads the cart view. So we're going to delete from carts table. And then I want to redirect to the updated cart. So we'll use a redirect to our cart action. Basically, we're going to call the cart method. The cart method fetches the updated list of items for this customer and reloads the view. So here's the method. I will put it on paste bin. And I'll put the link in the chat. If you need the method, you can grab the link. So fairly simple method. Find the item. If it's found, remove it, save the changes, call the cart method again. So we can give this a try. So I'll refresh my cart. I probably need to repopulate it. My session's going to get killed, so. Okay, so I'll put a couple items back in the cart. Pair of jeans. Shirt. Now I'm going to try my delete links. So I delete. My cart reloads. What if I delete my last product? Okay, so our remove from cart is working. There are a couple of other things we should add to this to kind of make this more polished. So the removal works, but I would suggest there's a couple other small additions we should make. Can you think of what else we should? Yep, there you go. No problem. Any suggestions of how we could make this a little better? It's functional. Maybe not quite production ready. Okay, Tyler, yeah, we could look at that. We may not have time for that one. It is a good suggestion. Even with the removal, I'm thinking specifically about remove. Well, it is actually. It's just because, Kevin, it's just because I'd shrunk the scale. Should customers see the page like this?
I don't think they should see the checkout button if there's nothing in the cart.
Right.
For one.
Yeah, I don't think they really don't even need to see this entire table. Why create the table if there are no items in the cart? We should maybe show them a different message instead of saying your cart with this table. Let's show them a message saying your cart is empty, there are no items in your cart. Maybe with the button, click here to start shopping. So let's do that. So in our view, in our cart view, all of this code, everything here from line 9, I'm going to indent this entire thing because I'm going to wrap it inside of a condition. So we'll say if model.count, which is a method, is greater than 0, and we're going to put all of the HTML that's here inside it. So I'll move that curly bracket, closing curly bracket all the way down to the bottom. So if there is at least one item in our list, show the your cart heading with all of the HTML. Otherwise, let's show a different heading. In this case, we'll say your cart is empty. Class equals, let's say BTN primary, text center, our ASP action will be index. We want to call the index method of the shop, and our button will say start shopping. So when the cart is empty, we should see this heading and a start shopping button. If the cart has at least one item, we'll show the your cart heading and the table with all our items, our total, and our keep shopping and checkout buttons. So I'll maybe do it like this. I won't put the entire table in. So I'll put that on paste bin if you need it. And let's try it out. So now I'll put something in the cart and then I'll remove it. add something to my cart. So my cart shows normally, but if I remove it, now we get a different message. If the delete button, it's probably a controller problem. So the delete button, put something back in. What you need to check is that the URL called by the delete button, so it's calling remove from cart. That's the action, ASP action, right? In our cart view, the action is remove from cart, and the root ID is our item ID. So this method name with this parameter has to exist spelled exactly the same way in our controller. So in your shop controller, the issue may be the method header is not spelled exactly the same as the action being called from the view. That's the most likely cause.
That is it. I just had it as delete, not remove from cart.
Right.
Cool. Thank you.
There's one other thing we should have on here. What other function is missing that we should always have if we're going to let users delete data?
An are you sure button, maybe?
We should always, before people delete things, because those deletions are forever, we should always ensure that they really want to delete it. Right, Kunwar? That's right. We should ask the customer. And this is more important than ever in the age of mobile web applications. Why? Because of what's known as fat thumb syndrome, right? I have a bunch of items in my cart, and I'm on my phone, and I mean to touch this delete link, but because I got a fat thumb, I accidentally hit that delete. So we should add a little JavaScript confirmation that when the delete link is clicked, we ask the customer, are you sure you want to delete this item? And they can click OK or cancel. So we can use some JavaScript for this. There's several different ways of doing it. The simplest way is just to write an on-click handler in JavaScript directly on in our view. We'll say on-click equals, and we want to return. We want to call a built-in JavaScript function called confirm. So confirm creates a modal dialog box with a message that we can customize and two buttons, an OK button that will return true and a cancel button that will return false. So if we want, we could even include the product name in our message. It could just say, are you sure you want to remove this item? Or we can say, are you sure you want to remove that item.product? And make sure we have the return, because that will evaluate, whoops, that's product.name. That will evaluate if the user clicked the OK button and we should execute the delete, or if they click the cancel button and we want this not to happen. Okay, so I'm going to add this in to that ASP, that anchor tag that has ASP action remove from cart. I'll just put this code right in the chat. And we can try it. So you can see the code on my screen in Visual Studio. I'll refresh my cart. I'm going to start shopping. I'll add something else. Pair of boots. So now I want to go delete something. So when I click, it asks me if I want to remove this specific product. If I click cancel, the link does not execute. I stay on my cart page. My hiking boots are still in my cart. If I click OK, this is going to return true, which calls remove and then brings us back. So we should always, always, always have some kind of confirmation if we're going to let users delete data from the database. So our first objective is basically done now. We've added a confirmation, we've written the remove from cart method, and we've cleaned up our cart page so that it shows a more descriptive message if the cart is empty. Are there any questions about the remove from cart method or our little JavaScript that we've added here before we move on to dealing with our duplicate item issue? Okay. So our second objective for the lesson was to modify our add to cart method before we save a new item to the cart table in SQL Server. We want to make sure that this user doesn't already have that item in their cart. And if they do, we want to increment the quantity rather than adding it as a new record. So for this, we're going to need to go back to our add to cart method. So this code, right now, it's running all the time. Anytime we hit add to cart, we're creating a new cart object, populating it, calling add and save. So this block of code here, I'm going to indent it because it's going to have to go inside of an if-else condition. So first, we want to check if item already exists in customer's cart. So we'll use our carts DB set with I could use a where clause, but I don't want to use the where function because where returns an iQueryable. It returns potentially a list. Whereas in our case, we only want one record. We should not have the same product in the same user's cart more than one time. So if we only want to select a single record, I can use single or default. So this will either give me one matching record or nothing. And then we're going to use our lambda expression to set up our conditions. So we have two things we're checking for. We're checking for the current product ID equals our product ID parameter, and we're also checking that our customer ID is equal to the current customer. Does this customer already have this product in their cart? We don't care if other customers have it in their cart. We're only interested about the current customer. So if cart item is null, I'm going to move this code for adding a new object in here. Customer doesn't already have this product in their cart. And now we need an else. So the else is going to be pretty simple. We don't have to modify the product ID, the price, the customer ID. We really just want to modify the quantity. So in this case, we'll say we want to increment quantity of the existing cart item. So we can use plus equals the quantity parameter here. So I've already got, let's say I've already got one in the database in my cart, and I pick the same product and I add two more. So quantity is now 2. This will make my quantity equal to 3. So I can call cart item I can call update. So we're going to update our DB set with the modified cart item. And then again, save the changes to the database. So we might do an insert, or if the item already exists for this customer, we're going to do an update instead. I won't post all the code quite yet. So here's the full code. This was our original section here. And this is the rewritten version that can now do insert, or it can do update. So I'm just going to try this out before I put it up. I'll put it up on Pastebin, but I don't want to do it yet. I want to make sure it works. So we need to test both adding a new item, that we didn't break that still works. And then once we can add an item, we want to add the same product to the cart again and make sure, rather than creating a duplicate, the quantity just gets increased. So I'm going to go back and try this out. I will upload it, copy it to Pastebin once I'm confident that it works correctly. I realize you may still need to see it. I just want to try it first. So I'm going to add sweater. Okay, so our add to cart for inserting, that still works. We can add a product. So now I'm going to keep shopping. I'll add another product. So our original code is still working. Now, if I go to my beige sweater and I want to buy 3 more, here's the test. Now, I'm going to add to cart. Okay, and that seems to work, right? It's incremented the quantity instead of duplicating the product like we were doing before. Okay, so this is the result that we want. I'll copy that block of code, and you can update your add to cart method so that it can now do both inserts and updates. Before it, when we wrote it last week, it only did inserts. There's the Pastebin link if you need it. the code at the top, the first few lines to figure out the price, and the customer ID and redirect, all that stuff is the same. So we've met our second objective, which is to prevent duplicate items. So we can now remove from cart, and we can update the cart if a user purchases greater quantities of something that's already in the cart. Well, that's good. Now, one other thing we could do, you'll notice here, so when I went to chapters, so I actually put these items in my cart several days ago. I didn't do this today. They were actually here. You know what? Actually, I'll come back to that. There's other things I want to do. We'll see if we've got time. I want to now add the cart link with those number of items. So we want to put a link in the nav bar, and we want to use a session variable. We need to use a session variable so we can keep a running total of how many items are in our cart, and we can display a little badge beside it. So let's go down to our cart method. So before we display the view, before we return anything here, we want to calc total number of items in the cart to display in the nav bar. Now we've already got the items here, so we could do this. Let's see. Bar item count. We can initialize a variable to 0. So we could do a quick loop through. We're already querying the database to fetch the list of items in the cart. Actually, I wonder if we may be able to do this even more easily. Cart items. Let's see. I think we can do this even more quickly from C in cart items. Select. Yeah, we can do this way. We don't need a loop. Easier. So we're fetching the list of items here, and we can then query, rather than making another call to the database, we can actually just sum all the quantities. So we can now use a session variable, HTTP context.session. We'll set an int32 variable. We'll call it item count, and we'll set it equal. So we're going to keep this running total every time we add to cart, update the cart, or remove from cart. We're going to update our session variable with the current total number of items. I'll add this to paste bin, and then we can add a link to our navigation bar where we can display this session variable called item count. There's the link if you need it.
So just to go over that query, so like I kind of get it, but not really. So like from C in cart items, so the cart items is the variable above, and C is just like reference. It's just like a term of reference, or is it referencing like the carts or the categories?
It's just an alias.
Okay.
It's just an alias.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So it's instead of, I could have written the code this way. I started to, so I could have done it this way. For each, let's say, var item in cart items, item count plus equals. These are equivalent. But here I've got to loop through it, whereas here I can do it in one, it can actually do all the math in one command. So like if we had 25 items in the cart, this loop would need to go around and increment it 25 times.
Versus just like looking through it once and adding it.
By using this syntax, this link query syntax, we can actually fetch them all and total and sum those up without needing to do a loop.
So it's faster. And
yeah, so it's faster.
Yeah, like when you like in like an application this small, it doesn't really matter when you get into like bigger things like Indigo and Chat.
Right.
It becomes huge.
That's exactly right. So this code would be familiar. You might do this in Java, or you might have written something similar in Java or C#. But yeah, with this language independent network query, this link library, it lets us write these sort of complex queries in a single line. So you could write this code this way. This is kind of like, so I'll put this in there for reference and I'll comment it out. Equivalent to the code above, but slower. So I'll leave it in here, but comment it out. Yeah, Kevin and Kunwar, I think just the tools that we get in the Microsoft world, they're developer friendly. They're designed for us to do things efficiently. So now we want to open up our layout file so we can add a cart link, and then we can read our session variable called item count, and we can display a little badge beside the cart link. So let's go to our views, shared, and layout. We haven't worked in this file for a while. So we'll go to shared and layout. Now, by default, in our layout, we can't just reference a session variable. We'll see, we'll try it. So beside my shop link, I'm going to create a new link. And I'll give it the same class of nav dash item, same class that our other links have. A class equals, I'm just copying the class definitions, text dark. Our ASP controller will be shop. And our ASP action will be cart. So first, let's just put a plain link on. So basically the same link we had above, except that one calls the index method and the link says shop. This one calls the cart method and the link also says cart. So let's add that. Go back to my home page. So I've put the code in the chat, but I'm also highlighting it here. Lines 27, 28, and 29, these are new. So now beside the shop link, I've now got a cart link. So anywhere we go in the site, we can leave the cart. I can go back to the home page, or I can go to the login, or I can read the privacy policy, but I have an easy way to get back to my cart. So now we want to use that little session variable that we created here called item count, and we want it to display beside. So I'm actually going to just break this up into a couple separate lines to make this easier. We'll have the text of our link. Then I'm going to say if at context.session. Now notice here, I want to call the getInt32 method, but it's not being recognized. When I type session dot, I don't have my getInt. So there's a reference we need to make at the top of our view. We haven't added references to our views before, so this is new, but we want to use some server-side library that we don't currently have access to. So I'll just leave this and come back here for a minute. I'm going to scroll up to the very top of the page, and we're going to add a reference here, Microsoft.ASP.NET Core. We need to reference the HTTP library. So if we want to display a session variable in any views, we'll need this reference. And by putting it in my layout file, any of the views that use this layout, well, then they can access session variables. So add that as line 1 of your layout. We'll finish off our badge to display the items, and we will take a break in a minute. So add that reference to the top of your page. And then I'll come back to my link. And if I type a dot now, with that reference now, I notice we get the getInt32 method is recognized. And we want to get the session variable called item count. So if this variable is not equal to 0, we're going to use Bootstrap's badge class. And I'll use, let's say, badge secondary. Give me a gray background. So we want to display this, our session variable, beside the word cart. I'm going to try this out. So if it's not 0, show the badge. If it is 0, don't show anything. We'll give this a try. So go back to my home page. My cart's empty, so there's nothing here. As soon as I put something in the cart, we now get a little badge telling us how many are here. If I update the quantity, hiking boots for everyone, tells me how many items are here. If I put another product in my cart, so this gets updated every time we put something in the cart. If I remove stuff from the cart, it now updates. So we're not counting the different products, we're counting the number of specific items. in the cart. So I'll put the full link on Pastebin, and I think we're due for a little break. So at the top, we're using Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.HTTP, and then there's our link. It says cart. We check the session variable. If it's greater than 0, we display that value in a badge class. Yep, sure, you can put whatever you want there. I don't have an icon for it right now, Kunwar, so if you want to find a card icon or link to an icon library like Font Awesome, yes, you could do that, absolutely. I guess we could do that quickly if we want. You don't have to. We could probably link to the Font Awesome toolkit and put an icon there if you want. So you can get them here. We may have to link to the style sheet to get it or download it. Yeah, I'm not going to set up a project right now. So if you want, you can do this. I'll just give you the link in the chat. So you're free to put in an icon or get an icon somewhere else. You can use Google's material icons, etc. I'm just going to leave it as a text link for now. I'm satisfied with that. Okay, it's about 5 to 12. I'm going to push the code that we've done so far up to GitHub. If you need it as a reference, let's take a 10-minute break here and we'll come back. Yeah, Kevin, but you have to go and find an image. So if you want to go and find an image right now, absolutely, you can do that. In terms of ease, well, the easiest thing is just use a text link because then you don't have to go find an image. If you want to find one, then absolutely, you're welcome to do that. Totally up to you. Okay, I'm going to push to GitHub and we will come back in 10 minutes.